For centuries, the wheel has provided a means of public transport which has evolved in the West Midlands to be one of the best in the country. Even so, it is way behind the heavily subsidised European networks, which are regarded as essential public services. This government's Transport Act will ensure that we will never see such systems in this country. The Act is removing the current road service licence in favour of registration of local services, which are defined as those having bus stops less than 15 miles apart in a direct line. Local services are broken down into commercial services and ones which require subsidy. What this effectively means in the West Midlands is that 83% of the existing services are registered on the commercial network, leaving a big question mark over the future of the remaining 17%. If we want to do something about this threat to our services, then we must act now.
At present, 98% of the 498 million bus journeys which happen within the West Midlands region are carried by the West Midlands Passenger Transport Executive. It is based on a totally integrated network of bus and rail, which takes into account the needs of the community at large. Such a system takes into account the cross-subsidy between the profitable and unprofitable but socially necessary services. This has also ensured a basic standard service for all passengers wherever they live within the West Midlands. Other benefits, which at the moment people in the West Midlands enjoy, are the fact that pensioners, for instance, are entitled to free bus passes and can travel outside peak hours. The travel card also has become a popular and fairly cheap way of financing travel for regular bus and rail users. The operating times are more suited to early and late workers, and people who visit hospitals and go to churches on Sunday, for instance. In addition, school buses and special single journey buses take people at an extra convenience to their work and to their school, so therefore servicing school students and workers alike. These are only a few of the various benefits which accrue and which we will see will be disappearing under this new Transport Act.
The legislation, non-profit making routes will no longer be subsidised. This means that many areas will have no service at all. Double-decker buses will virtually disappear, replaced with minibuses and single-deckers, packed like sardines. From the Hereford experiment, it can be seen that many ramshackle, badly maintained buses will appear, and it will be impossible to monitor the standards. The firms will have to compete with each other, and cuts will have to be made to be competitive. The first cuts always come in maintenance. Pensioners are not guaranteed a free bus pass. The decision will be left with the local authority, but government cuts in this area will not leave them much choice. School children lose their special buses completely, unless some private firm decides to provide one.
I have with me a private bus owner, Mr. Branston of Virgin Bus Lines. Tell me, Mr. Branston, what benefits will your service give to the community?
The benefits that will come are the benefits of responding to the customer's demand and the competition. And what that means is that in future you will get the services where there's a demand for them, not just scattered all over the shop. And in the long run, what you're going to get is the effect of competition bringing down prices, and that's what the customer wants.
I see. Tell me, compared to the present services, what sort of services will you be able to offer?
Well, as I say, we'll be offering the services where the people want the services. We won't be running services where there's just one or two people on a route, on the whole route. But where there's a demand for the service, there'll be an efficient service, and it'll be efficient because there's a profit to be made, and we'll be responding to that.
I see, thank you. Tell me, will you provide a service on Sundays?
If there's a demand for the service and the service pays, the service will be there, and it'll be an efficient service.
So you're not really interested as such as the old people say going to church or anything like that, supplying a service for them? If it's only a handful.
If there's a demand that justifies the bus, there'll be a bus there. If there's no demand, it means you shouldn't run a bus. Right.
I see, thank you. What about a night service?
Well, I have to say the same thing again. If there's a demand for a night service and that service paid, there'll be a bus there.
Well, thank you very much. No Sunday service, etc. How will people be able to visit people in hospital?
Well, as I say, if there's enough people wanting to visit in hospital, wanting to go to church, we'll be right there in the front with a bus for them to use.
And tell me, how will you be able to determine whether or not there is a demand for your bus services? Well, if the buses aren't there to see how many people are required for
well,
service?
we do very careful surveys of what demand is. Where a route is not getting much customer demand, we'll be looking at in very close detail to work out rational policies for the future. And as I say, if there's a demand there, the buses will be there.
Providing you can make a profit on those routes only, is it?
It's not a question of profit, it's a question of running an efficient service. If people don't want to take a bus, there's no point in running a bus. If they're there in the numbers that demand the bus will be there.
But what about those people who don't have this such luxury of an automobile? What about those people?
Well, that's what the buses are there for, and that's why we're anxious to serve those people. They're our market.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Branson, for your comments.
Pam, what do you think the effects of these cuts to the West Midland Transport will be?
I think they'll be pretty severe, and I think the sort of people they'll hit the hardest are the people who live out on the outer areas of a city like Birmingham, for instance, where you find that not many people actually travel into the city centre but like to travel to local shopping centres across the main route. And of course what's going to happen there is where the bus services are going to be cut, like on Sundays, and during the weekdays are going to be less frequent or even non-existent. Obviously people are going to suffer, and there's no doubt about that.
So you think actually the social life of Birmingham is going to change dramatically, because families have spread out from the centre of the Birmingham area to places out on the outskirts of Birmingham, and being no vehicles, families will not be able to visit each other or congregate in one another's home because of the lack of transport.
Yes, I think that's certainly true, and also when you're talking about social life, you have to remember that night service buses are going. The last bus out of Birmingham city centre is going to be midnight now, so that means that anybody who wants to go in there for entertainment of what kind or another, or people who actually work in the city centre, are going to have to use taxis to come home or their own transport. And of course a lot of people don't have their own transport.
So the arts of Birmingham, and which we're quite noted for, will really suffer greatly because people can't get away from various theatres, or you say come into the theatres because the transport is missing to get them to and fro.
That's right. I think people will think twice now about going into the city centre, and of course it is a pity because Birmingham is trying to project itself now as the Olympic city and some, in that sort of arena, and this is just not going to help whatsoever.
So poor old Dennis Howells could be a bit of a loser against him on this sort of thing.
Well, I think he ought to try and do a bit more to try and get it sorted out.
Yes, well, as I think as an ordinary commuter like myself can do, Pam, what can we do to help you?
Precisely like you mentioned Dennis Howell. I would suggest, first of all, people should lobby their MP and try very hard to get them to try and change this legislation. I think also you can contact your local councillors, particularly the ones who are represented on the Passenger Transport Authority. And then, of course, joining organisations, pensioners, for instance, in the Pensioners Convention. If that has lobbied very hard, I would recommend that people do join organisations like that, which can put some pressure on the government to change. And of course, I don't think this government's going to last forever, and I hope that the Labour government will actually repeal this Transport Act. In fact, as far as I'm aware, the policy is that this legislation will be replaced by a much more progressive transport policy by a Labour government.
There we are, passengers. You've had the words of our councillor friend Pam. It's up to you to do your efforts to try and get those buses back on the road and keep the private enterprise off.